Howdy, everybody. Have you ever wanted to be able to change your game's resolution at any time to any value that you desire, such as in many modern games? Well, I'm going to show you how by adding a display manager to your game. So let's get cracking. And once it gets done exiting, there it goes. Alright, so we're back to our tile-based collision and object-based collisions demo. And we're going to add a new object here. We're going to call it object underscore display underscore manager. And we're going to start adding some code into this in the create event. First, come back to our room. And we're going to actually want to create a new room, actually. Call it room init. And what is the purpose of this room? The purpose of this room is to give a blank space where you can perform pre-game actions, such as changing the resolution of the game to match whatever you desire it to be. So we're going to add this object into the room, and there's nothing else you really need to do with it. So what we will do is in the display manager, after we do all the resolution changing and such, then we'll add in a line of code saying rm under room underscore go to underscore next. And what that does is it causes you to go to whatever room is next in the room order. So you go from room init to room 0 here in this case. Typically, it's not really a good idea to use room underscore go to next because you never know really what's going to be next and it could always change. But in the case of the init room, it's kind of alright because you're probably never going to have any place else you want to go to next except for the actual game from the init room. So we'll get that into there in a bit. This will probably be a multi-part tutorial here. I'm going to start off by sharing with you some information on how to set up a windowed game, which was what I was showing there with Dungeon Defenders 2. But you're probably going to want to be able to do full screen games and whatnot as well. And you're going to want to be able to do pixel perfect games if you're going to have a pixel game and other such there's a lot of different things that you can do with the display manager. And as usual, not everything that I show you will be 100% applicable in every single situation, but it might be applicable in your situation. So let's get started with a windowed display manager here. We're going to start off by creating some variables here. So we have our ideal underscore width. It's equal to, 1024. And our ideal underscore height underscore is equal to 768. Those are the same settings as my room since I'm not using a view right now. Views are ways that you can change the resolution further. But in this case, I'm just setting it up so that it will show the entire room and nothing but the room. And why I call them ideal rather than the actual width is because if you are going to use pixel perfect sizing with views, then you are going to want to be able to, then these sizes will change dynamically to be able to match, to give a pixel perfect size for your screen. So next up, we want to grab some information here. So we're going to want our display underscore width. Go to display underscore get underscore width and display underscore height equal to display underscore get underscore height. And actually, let me zoom that in for you. So with this, we can get the actual display resolution of our of our monitor. So this will get you the actual size of the monitor that your game is in. So if the person has multiple monitors, this will get the display size of the primary monitor or whatever monitor that the game is created in. And well, this is kind of beyond your control at this point. So there's some other things you could probably do to make it compatible with multiple monitors better, but I don't really know about it. I've only ever made a game for one monitor so far. So in the future, I'll probably do another tutorial that shows different setups for this. This is, as always, a living project, and there's always something new to learn. So next up, we got all that. So let's create a zoom underscore. And for our zoom, we're going to want to floor our display underscore height divided by our ideal underscore height. Now, this zoom is arbitrary on my part, and it can change depending on your game and circumstances. So what this does is it takes our display height, in this case my display height is 1440, divides it by our ideal height, so I want 768 as my ideal height, so 768 times 2, 1536, okay, that'll be too large, so this will give me a value like 1.8 or something like that, and it'll floor it, so it'll give me 1. So what it'll do is it'll create, when we set it up, it'll create a window that will fit into my monitor directly, and it'll fit by however much you want it to. So let's say if my game was only 256 height. Oh wait, the room is actually 1024 by 1024. Oh, room init was 768. So I actually want you to be 1024. So yeah. So what this will do is, like I said, cause it so that it'll fit into my. So my zoom will be 1, meaning I only have one zoom level, and I can't really zoom in any further than what I already got. And so these are some properties here. And then we want to set our display. So now that we have some small values, some values for our display manager, we're going to want to go with window underscore set underscore size, and that'll be ideal underscore width underscore times zoom underscore, and ideal underscore height times zoom underscore. So what this will do is it'll change the size of the window that our game creates, and it will multiply it by our zoom. So if we had a screen that was, let's see, if the game was 256 and again our screen was 1440, then it would be 1440 divided by 256. So it would give us a zoom of 5 times. Our game could be 5 times larger than normal. And I kind of will, in my tutorial series I have shown previously, I add in like a -3 or -2 or whatever, because sometimes you might want to make it slightly smaller than the actual window size or something. Like if it was actually that it would divide perfectly into 1440, then it would make a window that's from the top here, but it would also go underneath the taskbar here, so you wouldn't want that to happen. So I would add in like -1 to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if you did that, then you'd also need to make sure that you have a min or max so that it would not go below 1 as your zoom possibility. So anyways, this sets our window size. Now, there's a bit of a, I don't know if it's really a bug or if it's just the way GameMaker works, but window sizing if you after you set the window size, you'll probably want to move the window into the center of the person's screen, right? So if we're going to do that, you have to create an alarm here, and window underscore center goes into there, and alarm 0 is equal to 1. So almost instantaneously, the next frame after you set the window size, it will center the window into the middle of the screen. And yeah, for some reason you can't just put window center immediately after window set size. You have to actually wait one frame to propagate it through the game. And another thing we want to do is display underscore set underscore GUI underscore size. So you remember that we have in the Game Maker, there's two different major surfaces that you see. You have the application surface, which is the surface that all the game stuff is drawn onto. So everything in this room would be drawn onto the application surface. But we also have a second surface called the GUI, which we can use that stays right here, that positions itself at the same position as the application surface in your window. And it will allow you to draw stuff like your, let's say, your health. It will allow you to draw your health in such a way that it will always stay in the same position on the screen without having to worry about where the the player moving around the room, and then the health would stay in the position that you last put it to. Excuse me. All right. Let's see. So we want to set our GUI size. We can set our GUI size to be any size that we want. It's independent of our game size. So if we want our GUI size to be twice the size of our game size, we could do that. And what that would do is it would cause our GUI to display everything at a super high resolution. So if you had really super high resolution GUI sprites and you have a pixely game, you could actually do that. You can combine super high resolution GUI with a pixely game, because you would be able to have the separate surfaces for the GUI and the application surface. And one of the things I'm going to show you in the more advanced section of this tutorial is I'm going to show you how to create your own GUI surface, because you'll need that when you want to do letterbox mode and when you want to do different size changes for your screen. So for this purposes here, we're just going to set you to ideal width underscore and ideal underscore height underscore. So yeah, our GUI will be the same size as our game. And again, like I said, it could be any size you want, really, but you probably want it to be multiples of your actual game if you can possibly do that, because it'll make it easier to position things. Then last but not least, surface underscore resize, application underscore surface, ideal underscore width underscore times zoom underscore, and ideal underscore height underscore times zoom underscore. So there we go. So what this does is, I was talking about the application surface. We set here the size of our window. So we can have the window be any size that we want. So we can have the window be the size of the entire monitor if we really felt like it. But the application surface is how much of the game is actually drawn there. So if we have a 1000 by if we have this application surface that's drawn at 1024 by 1024, it's drawing this whole game here. But if we had the window size to 1024 1240 by 1240, that would leave a bunch of black space around the edges because now we'd have a different size application surface than our actual window size. So we want to make sure our application surface is the same size as our window in this case, since we're doing a windowed game. And this would actually be different if we are doing a full screen game, because then we'd be able to, if we're doing full screen, our window size will be the size of the screen. So the application surface wouldn't necessarily be the same size, because we might want to have a 4:3 aspect ratio game and we're on a 16:9 monitor. So in that case, you're going to end up with black bars on the sides, and you'll want to be able to reposition the application surface so that you have it in the center. And there's all sorts of, like I said, all sorts of fiddly things that you can do in all sorts of different places. Anyways, let's see how well this works. I should probably actually set that in there. And one thing you'll probably want to do is set your display manager to persistent. You could also set it to not be invisible, but it doesn't really matter. There we go. As you can see, it positions in the middle of my screen very nicely. And our little guy's right there doing his thing as usual. Whee! Anyway, so yeah, if I wanted to, like I said, our ideal width is 1024 by 1024. But let's say I wanted to be half that. That'd be 512, wouldn't it? 12. As you can see, it comes back to 1024 by 1024 because if I set my display to be 512, then the zoom puts it back to 1024 by 1024 because now I can zoom in twice. Let's just set that to 1 manually for a second. There you go. See, now we have 512 by 512. And we can set this to pretty much any size we want, but we probably want to set it to multiples of our actual size because if you, well, whenever you stretch and change the size of your display, what you're really doing is you're stretching the size of the individual pixels here. So let's see if I can, there we go. So let's say each one of these is a pixel here. If each one of these is a pixel, then you would have to, if we stretch the size of the room by like 1.25, we're creating 0.25 pixels here to stretch everything to fit 1.25 times zoom. So you're creating fake pixels, and then that ends up with your then when you have complex shapes like the person here, the game doesn't really know how to create 1.25 times pixels, so then you get all sorts of weird distortions as it tries to interpolate where your actual pixels should be for your size. But if we use multiples of our base size, then the game can just can give you an actual duplicate of a pixel rather than having to create a 0.25 of a pixel. So if we double the size of everything, we can double the pixels rather than, or if we have the size of everything, we can have the number of pixels rather than having to figure out what in the world is a 25% of a pixel for this picture here. So anyways, that's the basic theory. I highly suggest if you want to get into the more technical details, you go check out Pixelated Pope's tutorial on screen resolutions and such. This is where I got a lot of the base information for how to set all this material up. So anyways, I think I'll leave it off on this part, and in the next part I will show you how to create a more advanced system that includes a pixel perfect resolution and views and a camera as well, since we'll need all those things to be able to change the size of the room further. Display. There we go. And so, yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And if you have questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you have complicated questions that involve asking me to help you figure out how to debug code or such, you're always welcome to join me in my Discord server, and I can help you there. The link is in the show information. So thank you again very much, and good luck with your programming.